Welcome to the Outdoor Adventure Lifestyle Podcast, the show helping outdoor enthusiasts land your ideal gig in the outdoor industry so you can grow your outdoor career and find more time for your adventures. I'm your host, Rick Says. Let's get after it. This week on episode 469, I'm speaking with publisher and editor of the Journal of Lost Time and founder of Granite and Light, Josiah Roe. Josiah is a visual storyteller and product designer. He believes that how you do what you do is as important as what you do, and that life is short, the world is big, and he wants to explore as much of it as he can before it gets dark. Welcome to the show, Josiah.
Hey, thanks, Rick. Thanks for having me. I appreciate your interest and time.
Yeah, we were just talking. I was telling you, I forget how. I think somebody sent me one or multiples of the work you do, and I just got sucked in. It was just the imagery, the content, just great work. I love it. Good job on you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's definitely been a labor of love to try to do the kind of storytelling that we find inspiring, that encourages people to deeper and more immersive travel. I do know what it's like to do 3-4 days in Cabo, just having a good time, but I actually really want to know what it's like to spend a month on the East Cape, to explore its nooks and crannies, and to know what sunrise looks like as a mother and calf, humpback whales, fish right offshore, and then just the local pescaderos come by selling you the fish they caught that morning, and the interesting locals you meet. Like, that's the sort of storytelling that we find particularly inspiring. And as a rule, we always want to have wonderful imagery to go with it, whether that's photo and now a lot more video. A lot of our clients are tourism boards, which
you're saying that. Yeah, I read a little bit about your background. We'll get into that. But yeah, that's interesting. How did that happen? How did you get involved with them? They reach out to you?
Well, no, I reached out to them. I was working in tech in San Francisco for a long time. My background was as a product designer, and then I started to travel more, and I was taking photos. And it was actually Visit Laguna Beach was my very first client. They got interested in some imagery I had taken and my sort of unique POV, where I wasn't just taking the sort of cliche photos that you get down in Laguna. Not that they're cliche for a reason, they're gorgeous, but I was getting some of the personalities and individuals there. And I quickly figured out what they were looking for. And that led to doing sort of content creation projects. But the magazine, the Journal of Lost Time, didn't exist at that time. So those first few projects I was doing, my assignments were very prescribed by the tourism boards. It's top 5 trails in our area. And that wasn't quite what I was.
Some marching orders you had to stick to.
Yeah. And then one of the advantages of the magazine is that it gives us a clear editorial perspective. And when a DMO or destination marketing organization is reaching out to them, or they're reaching out to us, they understand how we position ourselves and what they're getting for having us involved. And that's been one of the advantages of sort of having our own channels. And it was a little wild to start a magazine right when the pandemic hits and I'm trapped in a cabin in South America. But
what else are you going to do? You ain't going to get any worse than this. You might as well start it now.
Yeah, exactly. And so I just put my head down and started working, and was very fortunate to have some folks that share that vision early on. Nate Luby's one of my partners. He oversees a lot of the studio work now. And we've expanded a good bit of what we do, where we're doing more long form video storytelling. I've got an ongoing series called Higher Ground, which is about the remaining independent ski resorts in the U.S. I don't know how much you've been following along with the mega corporations gobbling things up and what that's done to experience for people. And we've been trying to, almost as a documentary, but trying to just capture those places that haven't been gobbled up. We're queuing up the ones for this winter, which has been a lot of fun. Nate is a ridiculously talented skier, so he's obviously very passionate about it himself. And it's also nice because we try to get local personalities to narrate those stories, which we now try to do with all of our projects. As we start to have more and more on-screen camera, we try to find the local, interesting, colorful personalities to take us from the dive bar to the hot spring to the surfboard shaping shop, because he knows those folks. And
those places exist in all the locations, right?
Yep. And it's been a lot of fun. And then us as the professionals, we understand the importance of making sure that content is digestible in vertical formats and shorts for TikTok and Reels, and the ever decreasing attention span of the average human being, even though we very much position the magazine. I call it like a Sunday morning magazine. I want people to sit and actually be willing to read 1,000 words on what it's like to bicycle across Armenia or something like that.
Well, I think the way you guys present it, though, you don't not be willing to read it sucks you in, and next thing, shit, I got to go to work or I got to go. Yeah,
is
you're
the hope.
pulling that off. Yeah, let me back up a little bit. What was your first outdoor experience? What was your outdoor
Gosh,
life?
I would say my first true outdoor experience. So about 15 years ago, I hit reset on life, 14 years ago, and moved to San Francisco, California from back east. I was living in Tennessee at the time, and where do you go to start over in life? You go to San Francisco. And obviously, despite what you might hear, it is a painfully beautiful city. Like it's just endless views.
I used to live in Alameda. It's a beautiful city.
Yeah, it's remarkable.
Everywhere
and so,
in the city and on the coast and whatever. Yeah.
Exactly. And I started getting into trail running. This is, 30 pounds ago. And I started doing a lot of just exercising. And so I was initially start out running through Golden Gate Park, which is just magical. And then, there's this thing called the Marin Headlands and trails everywhere. And I go over there. I'm like, man, this is incredible. And then I had a friend we dated for a while who was a geologist with the USGS, was in our friends group. And she's like, you can hike to the top of a mountain if you want to. I remember just going, what are you talking about? I'm not some crazy mountaineer. She's like, you can just walk to the top of it. Right. And the first one we did was Pyramid Peak.
Okay.
The first one we did was the Sierra Buttes in the Northern Sierras, which I'd seen many times as a kid because I grew up in Grass Valley and Nevada City.
A lot then. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So we'd seen them all the time, but I never even thought that, you could go to the top of that. And so she and I did that one weekend. And it's just a feeling like no other, being out there. And then that started a blitz all over the Sierras. And
did you do any backpacking, long-term hiking?
Oh, yeah. Lots of backpacking for weeks or two at a time. One of my favorite things to do, and again, this feels like a lifetime ago, and I wish I did it now, but I'm absorbed with work, is backpack in, set up a little base camp someplace epic, and then just go running.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Because it's not like the Sierras aren't a spider web of trails. But even then, once you get good at navigation, even some of the off-trail stuff would do, and it's just a lot of fun. Running up Slick Rock to some epic peak and coming back down. I got really addicted to it, and then did a bunch in New Zealand, bunch in Sri Lanka, then did the Annapurna circuit, and then up to base camp in the Himalayas. And
what were you doing that made you travel so much? That's pretty cool.
I was working at the time, the agency I was working at in San Francisco, it was a design agency, got bought by Facebook. And I had a choice to have my contract effectively bought out or to go work at Facebook. And I went down to Palo Alto and did a day there and no, hell no. I did not move to San Francisco to then commute an hour.
Oh, wow.
No, and then to work on like pay-per-click ads at Facebook. Yeah, it's just, no, I'm good. And so I took the buyout and took 3 months to go travel. And it was pretty great. So I got to bounce around the world a bit.
So you seem pretty busy now. You got just looking at all the work tourism boards, outdoor brands, the travel mag, Journal of Lost Time, 5 or 6 van life outdoor adventure events called Lost Places. I haven't checked those out. Those sound pretty cool. What do you do after lunch?
Man, after lunch, I keep right on working. In fact, I should eat lunch at some point. It is a lot. I definitely hit a point this summer where I felt overwhelmed to the point of being depressed because I didn't feel like I was doing any of these particular things that I cared about. And there were some aspects of them that I didn't like. And it was one of those get busy living sort of moments. And I just went to work getting the studio, Granite and Light, organized in the way it needed to be organized with Nate in charge and really focusing on the sales and the quality of the work that we do there. It was basically just finding lieutenants, and you can call it middle management, really trusting, simplifying in terms of the total number that we do, but really getting our processes in place for the events. And Selena, who now oversees most of them. And we got rid of one of the events, even though it was
Hmm.
profitable. I didn't feel like culturally aligned with what we were trying to do with the events and just what felt good to us. And another one of the events, it was a women only event. And even though we have one female partner in the company, it just felt like it belonged in the hands of women in the community. So we just handed it over to Summer and
Hmm.
Storyteller Overland effectively, even though we'll still be involved heavily with the marketing and promotion side of things and even some of the logistics because some of the
Hmm.
women on the team want to stay involved helping with that. And really focusing on our four core events. And then there's Simpler Ways, the marketplace, which has a real sort of natural synergy with both the content we produce with the magazine, the events that we do. I'm like, you know, sponsors who are part of the events can also have
Hmm.
their products listed in the marketplace. So there's a natural relationship there. And then at each one of our events, we of course have a really good photo and video team there that shoots great content for the brands, but then also goes in after event campaigns across our channels, also pushing those products, which are for sale in simpler ways. So there's just,
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't want to call it vertical marketing, but it's almost like a vertical integration, but almost like horizontal integration where we've actually got
Yeah.
field marketing, media, and content creation
It
all
all
under
fits
one
pretty
roof.
well. Yeah. Yeah. How many events do you guys
Yeah.
do a year?
We did six last year, but we're going to do four this year, maybe
Hmm.
four and a half if you include a room of our own.
Hmm.
We,
All Bay
yeah, we do
Area?
get,
Sorry.
no, we are, the events began when we were doing a content production project about 5 years ago, well, almost 6 years ago for down in Baja, California for several brands. And it was my third time to Baja at that point in
Hmm.
a van. And you would meet other really interesting folks exploring the peninsula. Baja's very much, I consider it to be like van life and overlanding
It's
endgame. It's
amazing.
hard to get any better. And as we meet these folks, it was like, hey, why don't we all just meet on this beach I know outside of La Paz? And just by word of mouth, like 40, 50 rigs showed up that first year. And the next year,
Nice.
double that. And the next year, double that.
Wow.
And now it's become, oh, there'll be a good 12 to 1500 rigs that come through over the course of the
Really?
event.
Wow.
There's probably a good 1,000 locals. It's become very much a celebration of Pasang, which are people from La Paz, and Cholleros, which are
Hmm.
people from Baja, sort of culture. There's a whole food section where it's all the local chefs,
Wow.
sort of showing off, doing their thing. We have a whole art section with a very excited because we moved locations this year to an even better location where we actually have an entire lighthouse, which we're going to use as an art gallery.
Very cool.
Yeah, I'm down in Baja right now dealing with a lot of the logistics of that. And that's the last week of January. It's also like along the Pan American. So we catch it. It has a really nice
Hmm.
international component to it. There's always a big caravan of Germans and
Yeah.
French and Belgians. And then now the Mexicano Volkswagen clubs show up, which are always
Yeah.
hilarious. And
Yeah.
they come down and always throw a big party in their caravan. And there'll be
Do you know the guy
60,
that
70
does
of
the
them.
Slow Baja podcast? Has he been
Yeah, I
on?
do. Michael, I know him very well.
Michael.
I've been
Yeah.
on his
Yeah.
podcast. Yeah, he's a great guy.
Trying to
Yeah.
get him on the show. Yeah. I have a good buddy of mine
He's
that lives in Loretto, so I've been down there having.
Oh, nice. Loretto's a
Yeah.
great town.
Great
Yeah,
town. Yeah.
it's unbelievable. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely one of my that little RV park, La Romanita, right off the town
Yeah. Right.
square is what a spot.
He's a photographer. I worked with him at Adventure 16 way back in the day, and he's doing a lot of
hmm
putting together all his images. I'll have to connect you guys. You guys have a lot in common.
Oh, you mean Michael
No,
from Slow
Marty,
Baja?
My buddy Marty.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'd
Yeah,
love
yeah,
to. That'd be
yeah,
great.
yeah, yeah. He does some pretty cool
Yeah,
work. Yeah.
yeah. But Slow
So
Baja is a great podcast.
great
Yeah, it's
podcast. Yeah, I'd love
really
to have him on the show. I think he'd be pretty interesting to talk to.
yeah. Michael would be great. I had done his podcast, had interacted with him a bunch online, but had never met him. And I was down on the East Cape of Baja, a little south of Cabo Polmo, up this arroyo, talking with just staying there for a couple of days with my buddy Mike of Drive the Globe, the big giant orange Unimog you might have seen, and just emerging out of the haze because in the distance is the ocean. Just
Yeah.
comes Michael
Cool.
in his Land Rover, this big slow Baja thing, and he hops out and he's got a bottle of Fortaleza in his hand. And I'm like, man, you're a legend, dude. What are you doing down there? Nobody. It's just
Yeah, yeah.
oh, I'm pre-running the Nora something or other. But yeah, he's an
Wow.
absolute legend.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
pretty cool. Yeah.
he's a good dude.
So you describe yourself as a visual storyteller and product designer. What is the visual storyteller part mean? It comes across in your work. Your visuals are just like I said, they just suck you in. It's amazing.
Yeah, I used to be a product designer in San Francisco, digital project designer. So it
Mm,
was like I was designing the applications that you might
got you.
use.
A lot of
Worked in,
software coding, all that kind of stuff.
yeah, but I wasn't doing necessarily doing the coding. No, I would draw the user interfaces.
Got you.
There's a whole process that goes
Yep.
into it, but I would
Hmm.
effectively draw the pictures that the coders would then make. But it's very much a collaborative thing between the engineers and the designers
Hmm.
and the product managers in an ideal sense. There's like the ideal way can work, and then oftentimes in the real world, it's less than ideal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most of the time. Same way with physical
Yeah,
products.
exactly, exactly. But yeah, that's what I'd spent most of my adult life doing. And so I naturally had a visual eye. And I really love writing, and it's something that I do well. And the process of taking photos and then moving into filmmaking, like anything that's learning the language of cinema and how
Hmm.
to visually represent things. And so I don't get to spend as much time doing that as I would like to be doing, which was a little bit of my existential crisis slash depression this summer. I do enjoy the events. There's something beautiful about bringing people together, but I miss the storytelling to the degree that I used to get to do it. It's nice to make something where I think it's beautiful, and
Hmm.
whether or not somebody else doesn't really bother
Is
me
irrelevant.
that
Yeah, right.
much.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With
And I think
events, it's a
that
little bit
start
more
to
difficult.
finish process too, right? Don't you just you start and
Mm-hmm.
finish and you feel like some accomplishment and
Yep.
some challenges and trials and trepidations along the way, and then an accomplishment
Yeah.
even much more better. If you're just working on managing people and stuff, you don't get that.
No. And events,
Events probably
it
same way.
doesn't matter how thoughtful you are or how beautiful the location is or how wonderfully you've curated the music and workshops and food trucks and all of it that goes into pulling off an event. There's still attendance
Right.
as a thing. And I didn't fully appreciate the extent to which I was very inspired by the idea of bringing people together, kind of humans being all we've got,
Hmm.
and love and connection being the best of that. I didn't realize the extent to which that still doesn't mean you don't get only just good humans. You get all of
And then
the
all the
funness
logistics
that
get in the
comes.
way too, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's it's like you created something that has profile that people talk about, and they go after you personally, and suddenly I'm not a perfect person by any means, but it's
Yeah.
been weird just become realize that I am a person in a certain community where people have opinions about me, whether or not they've met me or not, or yeah,
Do
and
the work. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's super interesting. It's been an interesting year learning how to handle that and how to be responsible when you're creating spaces for
Mhm.
people. It's one thing when it was just a bunch of friends hanging out on a beach in Baja. It's another thing when you've got 500 people and how to have codes of conduct and security, and
Hmm.
how do you want to handle disciplinary issues where you believe in
You've all
things
got
like
different
restore.
expectations. Yeah. Yeah.
And
What,
yeah,
so it
it's been
sounds like you
interesting.
evolved into that role. From storytelling, drew you to visual storytelling? Were you a drawer as a kid?
Picture's worth 1,000 words,
Yeah.
and I'm not really sure what drew me to it, but I remember when I learned about graphic design very clearly in college. There was a guy named Paul Rustin, this agency called Widgets and Stone in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and he's an incredible designer. And I just remember going into his studio in a small warehouse in Chattanooga just because of the friends, and just immediately being enamored with, what are you doing? I don't understand. What are all these typefaces? What are you doing? What is this Photoshop thing? Just being absolutely fascinated by the idea of all of that. And then I always thought the designers were the cool kids because they could make things that looked awesome. And because I was so involved with the business side of things, and this gets way back to a past life moving to San Francisco.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I was like, no, I'm just going to do the design thing. I'm just going to learn how to do it and do it well. And I
Cool.
did do it
Yeah.
pretty well. I'd had enough pointers and been involved with enough projects that,
You
yeah,
had some
quickly. But I
chops.
mean,
It's amazing.
yeah, I knew the tools, and now I still do. We use Figma for a lot of stuff, but I'm still jumping into there, making assets. And in today's day and age, with the Instagram and social media and reels and the rest, there's always a little bit of design involved with all the stuff like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even though so much of it is about breaking rules these
Yeah.
days,
Yeah.
but the rules are mutable anyway. There's no stone
Well, you have your
tablets.
visuals and your look, right? You want everything to look like, and you guys, like I said, you
Yeah.
pull that off. Everything looks like it came from the same
We try.
beginning, even though it
Yep.
evolved into these unique things. Yeah. How do you guys
Yeah. We do.
research and find the content, or does it find you? A little of
A
both.
little bit of both. A little
Yeah.
bit of both. We're constantly consuming. We've got a really good network. And really, what it comes down to with a lot of this stuff is there's just a lot of people out there that are pretty talented photographers. The hardest role we find is finding good writers. It's
Mm.
actually a lot harder than finding good photographers and videographers. And a lot of times I'll see somebody who's on a cool trip to northern Pakistan or something like that who's taking great photos. And I go, hey, dude, do you want to do a story about that? And they're like, oh, I'm not a writer. And so we'll put an editor with them and
Hmm.
write it in that first person active voice and go back and forth with them to get that dialed and then use the images. So a lot of times it's like that. And a lot of times we get submission. We have a not insignificant backlog of submissions. And a lot of it, just to be fully honest, just comes down to having the money to pay them
Right.
for it. It's not,
I'm sure you see a lot of incredible
media.
work.
Yeah. I'm not going to pretend like it's a vast money making machine at all.
Yeah.
And so it comes down to having, okay, cool, we can pay for so and so for this story now. Because I
Yeah.
like to pay everybody for their stuff.
It's great. Yeah. Yeah.
Early on, it was a little bit more good graces of other photographers that I had been working with and the rest. And
I did a lot of photo work for free or for gear. It's
yeah.
great, but doesn't pay the bills at the end of the day. So.
No, and then the big reason why, and this is giving away that I switched to destination marketing organizations as opposed to going after outdoor adventure brands, is that outdoor adventure brands don't want to pay for content, and odds are their marketing director and or social media manager was a photographer themselves who wanted the stability and or the paycheck
Mhm.
on a regular basis. So they took that job. So if and when there is a need for content, they're going out on those trips themselves.
Yeah.
And so
Rep
just
or a product manager, somebody on the team that can do it
exactly
and
who
do it
wants to
damn
do
well.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I quickly realized that there's some exceptions to that, of course, like with some of our higher profile projects we've done.
Hmm.
But those are always like, all right, we're getting these high profile athletes who are going to go summit something in the Brooks Range and ski it
Right.
for the first time. Okay, cool. North Face will write a rather large check
Yeah.
to make something like that happen because they're into that. But it's that low to mid tier stuff that
Hmm.
is damn near impossible to make a full-time living doing. And so I quickly switched to DMOs because you've built a good relationship with them. You're going to get a project every other year, more or less. It's a good rhythm. You got to stay up and stay in good communication with them. But that was
Yeah. You
also
got like any
something
relationship, you got to nurture the relationship to keep it going.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And
So
sort
do
of
you
stay in
guys,
contact with them.
yeah. Yeah. Do you use any AI tools in your work? You must use a
No, most
handful.
not.
Interesting.
We
Not none, but
let's be clear on some stuff. Yeah, this year we played with it a lot with the events and some of the
Mhm.
marketing for the events, just because I felt like it was a good gimmick out of the gate that we could have some fun with it, especially because we had a couple of new events where we hadn't had a content team there. So we didn't necessarily have assets
Mm.
in our photo and video library to use in that way. Now
Mhm.
we have used like content aware fill and stuff like that
Mhm. Mhm.
and Photoshop and some other things. But to be really blunt, like Nate and I find it fun, but I've got right now a little bit more fear about
Yep.
some of the crazy stuff you can pull off, particularly on the video side of things.
Yep.
And the fear exists for me less on a creative standpoint and more on the, I'm already in awe of the speed at which misinformation and outright
Yeah.
falsehoods
We don't need
can
any more
spread.
AI to spread misinformation. We got plenty of
Yeah,
folks doing that.
and
Right.
that's I sit and just and I experienced it about a year ago
Mm.
where I watched the sort of internet mob pull us into a situation that we didn't have anything to do with,
Wow.
but human beings have um, a I think it was not necessarily a good idea to let anyone say anything to everyone all of the time. Like that might have not been a
Yeah.
a good idea.
Giving everyone the
Maybe.
microphone is not good.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And people don't think about the damages that can cause when
Hmm.
they fire off something, and they love to feel right and they love to feel justified. And
Hmm. Hmm.
the history of our species is one written in doing enormous violence to one another and the planet and other species for short-term gain.
Yeah.
And that instinct, for whatever reason, is very deep in us. The I grew up a particular kind of religious, that sort of original sin, as it was called, and that sort of depravity, even though I'm not necessarily in that world now,
Hmm.
I still see it. But what I do with the storytelling and with the events is, in a very real way, how I try to fight that darkness
Hmm. Hmm.
and put a little bit of light in the world.
That
Um,
could be why your stuff comes across so authentic, because it is authentic. It's not some of the things that we read and look at today. And I'm curious about that all the time because I wonder, am I looking at something that was created by a human or is this an AI thing? Because you can look and wonder that looks a little fake. But when you look
yep,
at your stuff, it's so authentic. It's not fake.
it's heartfelt. It's
Hmm. Hmm.
we, and it's one of the things like
And it
Nate and
stands out in the
I.
world today because I don't think we see as much of that as we used to.
Yeah, there's a few other magazines doing it that I really look
Yeah.
up to that
Hmm.
that are trying to do it. And there's some that, like, to be fully transparent, that I look at it, I'm like, we should be partnered in some way. Like
Hmm. Hmm.
there should be some sort of relationship there to do that kind of thing. But yeah, there's a heartfeltness to it. And it's Nate, who is my business partner on the studio side of things. He and I couldn't come from two completely different worlds other than being a couple of white dudes. He's an only child. I come from a big family, and yeah, it's just funny. But at the end of the day, that heartfelt giving a shit,
Yeah.
we very much share. The type of storytelling I like to do is slightly different than his. Like, he's particularly passionate about wildlife, and
Mm.
he's literally about to jump on a plane to go to the northeast corner of Greenland and shoot polar bears and the retreating
Cool.
ice cap up there, which is just an awesome project for us to get to do.
Can't imagine.
Which
That'd
is
be
why he
amazing.
won't be at our next event in New Mexico, because he
Mm.
usually runs the coverage team. The coverage team is what we call, like, the photo and videographers at the event.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
I'm very happy for him to be there, and it'll make a great piece in the Journal of Lost Time.
No
Plus, I mean,
kidding.
Greenland's just
Oh man,
gorgeous.
yeah, I haven't been there yet. Been to a lot of places, but not Greenland.
Yeah, it's wild. If you get a chance to go,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's pretty crazy.
I don't miss those
Um,
chances. I say yes every time,
yeah,
wherever it is. I don't care.
yeah, it's wild. Yeah, it's just, and it's also like the subsistence living is still interwoven with a lot of what goes down there, which still
Hmm.
blows my mind.
Hmm.
Not that it doesn't exist all over the world, but it's like,
It's
oh,
amazing
cool.
when you
There's
see
the,
that, though. It exists all over the world except maybe in the U.S., or it's at least there's a lot more of it in other places than there are in the U.S.
yeah,
And
I was fortunate to grow up, and I understand that it was, my parents were boomers and why things were easier for them at the time. But I grew up in a one income family where my dad was working
mhm.
three jobs and my mom was working the garden. My dad and I would, from the time I was legally allowed to do it, pull in as many deer permits as we could and go hunting
Yeah,
for pheasant, turkey, and deer. And that was our meat.
yeah,
There
yeah.
was no idea of sport hunting. I remember when I first heard about that, and I
Right,
was just,
right.
what are you talking about? Like, they
Where'd
just
you
kill
grow
things
up?
for fun. I was born in Michigan, and a little distant Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania,
Mm,
northeastern
okay, okay.
Pennsylvania, an old dead coal mining town.
Mm,
And
mm.
yeah, just, it was great from like being a kid standpoint. Saturday morning, my mom would kick us out of the house, and we weren't allowed back in till she literally rang the
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 dinner
supper
bell.
bell. Yeah, literally, it was like, there's a sandwich in your backpack. That's your lunch. Get
Right,
out.
right.
And so we were just all over the town. Yeah, it was very much that sort of small town thing.
I think
And
those
then we
of
moved
us
to,
of a certain age, we grew up as free range kids, and I think
oh, it
it's
was
just
great.
it was amazing. Same thing. I grew up in Southern California, but it was way many years ago, and it was
Hmm.
smaller than it is today. And you could be a free range kid there. There
Yeah,
was
yeah, yeah.
still places to go. I'm watching these fires. That's all. That was our backyard.
Oh,
All
wow.
those mountains that are burning, and we just went and had our way with them back in the day. And it's so sad to see
Yeah.
what's going on. But this was years ago when there was the houses weren't there, the people weren't there, and
Hmm.
now it's crazy. So. It was a great
Yeah,
time to
it's,
grow up and be a kid.
yeah, I mean, and the thing that bums me out is, like, I don't see why. I get it. They're stuck to their devices and stuff, but Yeah,
Well,
I
there's a
don't
lot
know
of
why
people
it's
stuck to
not.
their advices, and there's a lot of people. We've evolved to be afraid of the world, afraid of the outside. We don't want to
Yeah.
go outside because there's some, things that happen that never happened when I was a kid. We were kids, and now they happen on a too regular of a basis. And I think
Yeah, I think
that's
it's a
kind
little
of,
odd because even with crime being at an all-time low, the fear machine
yeah,
in the news cycle pumps it out, and there is just an absolute massive problem with we're getting into I don't think it's a political issue, gun violence, but it's in like
hmm
schools
hmm
and things
hmm
like that, which
yeah,
is
yeah. No, it's a
I'm just
different
trying
world. Yeah,
I'm trying to fathom that. I remember when Columbine happened and just because that was like the first big one that stuck out in my mind.
yeah. We
And
never
now
had
it
any of
feels like
that when
it's
I was a kid. I
yeah,
remember that.
oh yeah.
I grew up in the '60s. I was born in '60,
Yeah, that
so
just
it was
didn't
just it's a
but yet my
wild time.
dad and his buds were like marching around with something got weird
Yeah.
in the last in our at least in my lifetime where
Mm.
I'll be blunt, I'm like, let's just not have kids have AR-15s. Let's just not. Let's try it. Let's just try it.
Yeah.
Let's just try it.
Yeah, yeah,
Why
yeah,
not?
yeah.
Or maybe
Not have
only
AR-15s. Let's leave those for the
yeah, like
military,
let's
right?
just try it. Let's just
Yeah.
try it. What's the downside?
That Jimmy ain't going.
My
Ain't going back
position
to.
is unless they're for hunting purposes, the only people that should be allowed to have guns of that kind are women.
I don't think anybody should have them if they're not in the military. But
I'm on your side with that. Yeah.
let me get us
No,
back
go
on
ahead.
the content.
Sorry.
No, that's
Yeah,
all
we're
right.
off
It's
track.
easy. It's easy to do these days. It's easy to do these days.
We're going to take a little break and give some love to our sponsor, Thrive Market. Think organic groceries are too expensive? So does Thrive Market. They guarantee savings on healthy groceries and home essentials delivered. How? It's easy. They work directly with the best organic brands so you get the highest quality products without the big retail markups. Shop everything from pantry essentials to sustainable meat and seafood to non-toxic cleaning supplies. And save up to 30% on your favorite products. Choose a free gift up to $24 in value when you purchase a Thrive Market membership. 1 year and 1 month memberships are available. Go to ricksays.com/Thrive Market and get your membership today. That's ricksays.com/Thrive Market. Now, back to the show.
In the content creation part, what do you think some of the common mistakes new writers or content creators make, and how can they be avoided? Did they get too zealous and try to do too much over the top, or what do you think?
On the photography side, there's definitely a tendency to overshoot. And especially today, in today's incredibly high frame rates
Yeah.
or frame shots per second that you could do. So there's a
Yeah.
tendency to just kill yourself by shooting so many and then look, you don't need to deliver to the client 8 of the exact same shot.
Mhm.
So I think that's definitely a mistake you'll make early on, but it takes a little bit of trust in yourself and practice to get to the point where you know that when you've gotten the shot. I also think one of the biggest mistakes is, especially on the photography side of things, is I just don't think like your first couple of years, you should only shoot primes
Yeah.
because you learn the focal length and you
Right.
learn what the story it can tell.
Yep.
And then it becomes instinctual. It's okay, I know what a 28 is going to feel like in
Mhm.
this situation. I know what a 35, a 50.
And it
Literally
forces
just
you to capture that image properly as opposed to
Mhm.
just firing it off and
Exactly.
zooming in and out and doing.
Yeah, it's like a discipline to then get the zooms because
Right.
you're going to sit there and look at it and go, oh, okay, no, I want to get what it feels like on a 50 for et cetera, et cetera. So I would say that, and that was a bit of advice that I had gotten. It's like, I just had somebody go, don't buy a Zoom for a couple of years to shoot nothing but primes, which is all I did. And
That's good advice.
now when I do get to shoot my own projects, I will almost just pick random focal lengths and only shoot those for the project just to tell the story,
Mhm.
create these boundaries on it. My favorite to shoot it is like the Canon 51 II. That's just a magic lens. And
Mhm.
give me that and my drone and a 100-400 zoom. And that's
Yep.
really all I need.
The writing side of things. What about
On
writing?
the writing side of things, I'm stunned at how, oh man, how do I put this? I am continually stunned at how just poorly written most things are that I get. And I'm not sure why that is, but I don't know. Everyone get the manual of style and absorb it and we'll say like we want something in first person active voice and we'll get
You
third
know what
person
that is.
pass. Exactly. Yeah. Do you know what that means? And so we'll run into these sorts of things, but I would say write once and then edit 3 times and just try to refine and get it as distilled down. And,
Do you think they're rushing, or do you think they just don't give it much thought? What do you
I
think
think
it
they
is?
just blitz through. I think they just crank through and they
Very,
think
yeah.
that they've said it. And it's this manic, it's a very American approach to writing. Somebody once told me that the English write to master the English language, and they have something they want to say, and Americans write because they just got to express themselves. And so it's a little bit more,
They got to get it out.
but yeah, they got to get it out. I also say that as somebody who, as 40 something white guy, I think I'm obliged to find Cormac McCarthy one of my favorite writers and to find his style fantastic, even though it is incredibly run-on sentency.
Yeah, he's pretty good. He's
But
damn good, though. Yeah.
but he's great. It's yeah, you can break the rules when you're that good at describing
Right.
something. And
Right.
I could listen to him describe a group of people on horseback riding against
A glass of
skyline
water on
in
a
a-
desk in the sunlight. He could just do
yeah,
wonders with that thing.
it's just amazing what he does.
Yeah.
Yeah, like he just burns the image into your brains with words. So I would just say that I really understand tenses in the voice and the editorial requirements of the assignment, and then edit and get it as simply as possible. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
avoiding flowery language and understanding, like it's the same principle behind, if it doesn't need to be in the photograph, get it out of it,
Mhm.
because
Less
it's
is more,
just
yeah.
creating
Less is-
static. Yeah.
Less is more usually gets you to a good place.
Yeah, that's what I would say with the writing, because I spend a lot of time when I'm editing somebody's piece. It's just, and it's also that that adjective actually does not work for that word. Like,
Or
little
those three
things.
adjectives. You'd only need one.
You really just need one. But don't get me wrong, I've got my ticks that I overuse. But yeah, that would definitely be my advice to them.
We all do that. Yeah. Do you have any advice for
Yeah.
someone looking to publish their work
Oh man,
or get their work published? How does that?
it's brutal. I mean, yeah,
You must get so
it's
much
hard.
stuff come through your.
We do,
sources.
but I also know as somebody who's you're just pitching.
Mhm, mhm.
It's really hard to pitch a raw idea and get it funded without you having a good relationship with the editor and stuff already, which starts out as an intern and climbing the food chain. The industry itself has been obliterated by the interwebs, and money for those kinds of projects is hard to find.
Mhm.
It's a little bit easier to come with a project that's fully formed. I've got, just on a personal level, I've got 3 approved things where I just need to sit and take the 3 days to finish writing it and get all the photos together and get it turned into Tina at the Overland Journal. Like, it's
Oh,
just,
cool.
I have all that stuff, and
Yeah.
she knows it. She's like, whenever you want to send it in, but it's just time. So
Yeah.
I would definitely say it's just a grind, and you got it's no different than any kind of sales things. You got to get 99 no's to get that one yes.
Mhm.
And it's an incredibly difficult industry. Like, even with the changes in Nat Geo's lucky because they've got a big foundation. Like,
Mhm.
somebody once told me, I don't know how true it is, but it's like the magazine doesn't make money. They're able to keep going because they've
Yeah.
got a big foundation and they're
I
endowed.
heard that
and-
from somebody. One of their photographers was on a river trip with me one time, and I heard that from.
Oh,
him.
really?
He said the same thing. Yeah, it says, yeah, it's not the money's not the magazine's not the source; it's the foundation. So
Yeah.
yeah, they've been around for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
How
pretty
often do you
interesting.
get people pitching you something, or versus how often do you run across somebody that you have an idea for and you get them assign it to them?
I'd say it's weekly. Yeah, there's several times a week. Several
Wow.
times a week. Yeah. There's a lot of folks that, like, I think do incredible work
Mhm.
that, like, right now there's this really excellent photographer in La Paz in Baja California, sir, and I've done a dozen pieces about Baja, like this overall guide. One day maybe I'll turn it into a book. But Sean Smith is the photographer, and it's weird, for even though I've spent more time in La Paz than any other place in Baja, I've almost never taken my camera out while I was there. It's weird.
Huh.
But he's been doing a really excellent job, I think, with the photography on it. And I found this writer there, just you meet as you're reading it. I liked her style. And so now I'm actually trying to put the 2 of them together and go, hey, Christian, you've got this. This is the angle on the story, and I'll edit it. And I do think editors are the secret arbiters of great storytelling. We certainly understand it in film. But I do think it's the same way with the written word is they help guide it. And we understand how that works in the book.
You guys the editors get so much exposure and experience with working with a wide variety of stuff, whereas us, the photographer, the writer out there, we just do our thing and send it in, and you guys just have that other critical eye that can make it go that much better. So,
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's an argument we sometimes have internally where it's like, look, first person active voice isn't a style. Subject verb agreement isn't a style. Right. It's about communicating clearly.
And you guys must always have exciting projects on the horizon.
Always. And there's never not. It's been a little with the events and how much they've absorbed my life personally. It's taken away my freedom to do some of the storytelling I would like to do, but I'm happy to play midwife to other people and the storytelling that they're doing. Do
you get out and do some creation on your own though?
Every now and then, take the girlfriend out this weekend and she'll rip and run on her motorcycle and I'll shoot her at sunset on the beaches of Baja. There's some fun stuff like that. But right now I'm more like the writing is a little more inspiring to me. Like I get a jolt of serotonin out of a well-turned phrase in a way that, photography isn't quite doing for me just yet. Like I'm enjoying the written word a lot.
It's interesting. I used to shoot a lot and always tried to get published and stuff and wasn't very good at that side of it, but just loved, and living in Eastern Sierra too, there's no shortage of great things to shoot.
It's just great over there.
For a while, I put the camera down. I haven't picked it up in a long time. The podcast takes a lot of time. I enjoy it, but it's interesting. Some of those things you just set aside for a bit.
There's this thing that's become pretty frequent that I've seen that I really find fascinating on like TikTok and Instagram Reels, where they will either somebody's written it or they've grabbed a quotation. It started out where they were just using audio clips of Alan Watts talking or something like that. But now it's like, I'm not sure who's saying it, but then they'll pump it through some AI filter to sound like Alan Watts or Edward Norton or something like that, and then have the script appear like subtitles but superimposed on top of video clips of beautiful places. And I'm fascinated with it as an art form, really. Well, like why that typeface, why that quote or that script, and why those video clips stylized in that film way. And I get it's all to evoke a certain sense of gravity and seriousness and also almost like timelessness, like you're receiving wisdom both from Europe, which is old, with a serif typeface, with a video that's been edited to look like it's old film. So I get what's going on, but then I'll see it done in other styles too. So I'm fascinated as this way of like transmitting knowledge and or wisdom, because I find myself sitting and watching the entire thing. But I've been told that the average attention span, like the max you get, is 5 seconds out of somebody on TikTok, which blows my mind because I would like to read the whole thing. But
it's amazing. Anyway. I think that's the beauty of some of the tools that we have too, is the creativity is just exploded. I see, like you probably, in my daily peruse of the net or whatever it is I'm doing, 3 or 4 things that catch your eye and grab your attention and got you hanging there for 10, 15 minutes daily. It's just amazing.
Yeah, it's a wild time.
It's pretty impressive.
Yep. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I do think there's just something about the cell phone and that the cameras in them and those devices, which are
and the availability 24/7, 365, whatever you're doing.
Yeah, they're ubiquitous, and the editing tools built into the apps are themselves incredibly powerful. And what that enables someone to do, as opposed to Nate and I talk about it, like just the unbelievable amount of work it goes into doing shoot a time lapse of Whitney from the Alabama hills. I realize that's Lone Pine, but whatever. You pick something up near you, shoot a time lapse of sunset over Hot Creek, and then the Milky Way galaxy appearing over it. We know the craft and skill it takes to pull that off, and it's wild to see what gets engagement versus not. And I definitely miss the days when Instagram was just photos.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's wild to see. And now they've added this weird little notes thing where I can put a note and have a thought bubble above my head.
Is that what that is? I've seen
Yeah,
that.
yeah. It's just like, why? Like, at what point do you go, it's done? Like,
Yeah.
we've baked everything we can into it.
Yeah. I don't do that stuff anymore. I focus mostly on the audio and the podcast. I have a
Yeah. I,
woman that works for me that does this Instagram stuff and whatnot. But
I also, like, I've stopped shooting a lot too, just because
same. Yeah.
I have a girlfriend. She's been down here in Baja, so we've been down in Baja together. I haven't been traveling as much in my van. I started van life before hashtag van life was a thing, and before the rise of all these companies and the sprinters and all that stuff. So I did my 7, 8 years. I feel
Yeah.
I paid, which is a long time for what is a very transient community where most folks only do it for 2, 3 years, and then
Well, they're not
they
living it,
settle
right?
down.
It's a fad for them. They on to one thing
Yeah.
and on to the next thing, and it's a fad.
Yeah, it's definitely a fantasy, this
Mhm.
that American dream of letting it all behind and traveling, being out in the world. You know, I'm sorry you're shitting in a bucket. There's nothing wrong with that, but
Yeah. It's fun.
van, yeah, van. Let's not joke around. Van life is life on hard mode. Doing it in a van again, which I was doing in a 82 van again. That's like
Right.
expert mode. Then trying to run a business,
Right.
that's
Before
completely
the
nuts.
internet, before the phone.
Yeah.
Right.
Before Starlink existed, now that
Yeah,
Starlink
exactly.
exists, it's great.
Connect everywhere.
But
So all those
yeah.
days and what you're doing now, do you have a favorite piece of outdoor gear that you have to have with you all the time?
Man, if I had to pick a favorite piece, it's the Snow Peak titanium cup.
That's
Like
a good one.
I know it's a weird, quirky, specific one. I know,
Yeah.
but I just think and it's odd too because it's not like the metal doesn't get hot when I'm pouring hot coffee in it. There's just something about that color green or blue, depending on which one you have.
hmm
I love the feeling of the handles folding them out. That's probably my favorite piece from a pure backpacking standpoint now.
hmm
Like
Any
my
van, is there
favorite.
something in your van that you always like, oh, we
Oh,
can't.
the sound box, the large
Oh, there you
portable
go.
speaker.
There
Yeah,
you go.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got that mounted to the back of my van as a tray
Gotcha.
because who doesn't love music and roll up
Exactly.
on any caravan and swing
Yeah.
that thing out. Next thing you know, you got a soundtrack. And so
That's right. Yeah.
that was some of my favorite things to do was roll up into some beautiful place, some end of the trailhead where you're the only one up there and you set it out and you set your chair out and crack some wine and listen to
Hard
some
to be the
beautiful
only guy
music.
there these days. Find
It-
spots. You can probably find a lot of spots in Mexico too, I would imagine.
yeah, it's definitely, yeah, like I remember what it was like before the rise of van life and to roll into Valley of the Gods in Utah and be one of maybe two or three.
hmm
I was there in April last year and I still got great spots. Like
You can still do it. Yeah.
yeah, you can still do it. And yeah, I think there's definitely more people. And so some of those like most popular spots have folks, but like I was always looking to go to the end of the dirt road down so there's just plenty of places.
Do you read a lot? Do you have time to read a lot? Do you have a favorite book? Have a favorite book?
Not as much as I'd like to.
Yeah.
It's just yeah, not as much as I'd like to. It's a little heartbreaking. I did reread Blood Meridian again by Cormac McCarthy.
Good one.
The road's incredible, but
Yeah.
something about Blood Meridian was really good. No, I don't get to read nearly as much as I do or would like to. It's
Is there a favorite book
short
from
form.
from all the things you've read, or
I would probably say like Blood Meridian or The Road was really good. There's some that I'll read once a year. Like I always got to go through Dune.
yeah,
Just I love
yeah,
Dune.
yeah.
But yeah, there's some stuff by V.S. Naipaul, which is really good.
Hmm.
Yeah, probably Cormac McCarthy. I know
That's pretty good,
it
yeah.
is what it is, but I just don't. It's one of those things where I wish I had more time to read, but I'm absorbed with a to-do list that never seems to get any shorter. And
Same. I do the
Yeah.
audiobooks when I'm in the car, but yeah, I don't read
Yeah.
much anymore. Yeah.
it's disappointing.
Yeah, it's tough. Yeah.
Yeah,
I can't
I'd
believe
like
we've
to.
blown through an hour. That's amazing.
Yeah, that was
Hour
fast.
15, that was fast.
Yeah, do you have any other questions?
I don't. I just, as we wrap up, is there anything you want to say to audience, or how can the people follow up if they want to reach out to you?
Oh, there's anything having to do with the Journal of Lost Time, which is the magazine, but I would definitely encourage people to, by all means, go. Life is short and it's going to be gone like that.
Yep.
Don't get me wrong, we've got to work to put food on the table, but if you can get out and explore, especially now in this time of climate change, losing so much of, it's a sadness to see. Like Anianta Gorge and the Columbia River, and knowing that I'll never see it like that again because it burned out and it's closed and it's going to take decades to come back. And maybe that always happens.
That's what's killing me about those fires in Southern California. It's holy crap. I'm not going to see that again in my lifetime.
Yeah.
It's just, oh my God.
Yeah. I would just definitely encourage folks to get out there and
get outside,
see as much as they can.
That's
it's also just beautiful.
Make time to get outside.
We're rolling into October and I'm really stoked because it's got an event in New Mexico, which means I get to hit Southern Utah and enjoy all that magic. And and then of course fall and winter in San Diego is no joke. And I love when the first rains come to California and the whole thing turns into Ireland for a few months. Like I love California. I think it's the most it's just I love affair with that state. People who rip on it.
It's been good to me living here. It's been a great state to live in, I'll tell you.
Yeah, throw a dart. Like I'll freaking take Fresno and Bakersfield. Like I will. I'm an hour to a million awesome things, and the food's great.
Exactly.
Don't get me wrong; those summers are really hot.
It's the thing. Any place in California, you're going to avoid it at certain times of year, but there's certain times of year where it's the best place on the planet.
Yeah, that you can't touch it. Gosh, February in California, it's just unreal. March, April.
I'm an October guy
green
in California. The colors and the fall.
I can respect that. Oh, especially where you're at.
Yeah.
Because you can get up into the Aspen. Yeah, it's really cool up there.
And today's the first day that it feels like fall. It's been hot all week, and I think we're going to be below 90s.
You know what? But until last year, for the 50 times I had driven down 395 all night, because it's like if I'm leaving my parents to go to something, I always go up over the Sierras and go down 395 because it's just a prettier drive. Right. I had never done the June Lake Loop.
Oh, wow.
I know, like all those times.
Yeah, holy cow.
I had never done it. I just had no idea. I just had never done it. And then I finally did it. And I was like, it was like perfect timing for the colors too.
Oh, spectacular there in the colors.
I was just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And I remember Claire, who was the person who was the first one to do an outdoorsy thing, she like moved there, and she and her husband now live there. And
oh, cool.
She's it's unreal.
It's amazing.
Like, I've gone to a bazillion other things in that area, just never made that. It didn't even register with me. That weird little gas station store was the right you take to go do that loop.
Yeah. There's a couple of other secret spots up there that are like that all the way north.
There's some interesting ones.
Gems, yeah.
Yeah, there's some real gems. Good hot springs.
Yeah.
Some Rosalina. Twin Lakes breaks my heart, but it is what it is.
Yeah. It's cool stuff.
All those damn generators.
I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of all the people, but it is what it is.
It is what it is. Yeah.
It's been a great talking to you. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, it's been great chatting with you, Rick. Let me know how I can help. Yeah, I hope our paths cross. If you ever want to come out to an event, just let me know. I'll get you tickets.
Absolutely. And, I'll connect you with my buddy that lives down there in Loretto too. He's a big photographer. You might want to.
Oh yeah, cool.
He's a pretty fantastic photographer. So
yeah, I'd love to connect with him. That'd be great.
Right on. Cool.
Awesome. Thanks, Rick.
Thank you.
All right, have a good one.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Outdoor Adventure Lifestyle Podcast. Be sure to visit our website, ricksays.com, where you'll find show notes and links to everything we talked about and more. And while you're at it, if you found value in this show, give us a rating on Apple Podcast or spread the word and tell a friend. That would really help us out too. Be sure to tune in every week, and thanks again for listening to the Outdoor Adventure Lifestyle Podcast.